You know, or the girls do the same. And I'm walking into the gym and I see the girl laying down. And she's like, let her work home with it. And then the ankle goes. And I'm like, oh, there. I don't have enough. Well, there, find out. Okay, yeah. Like to come at 19:05. We can ask him a question, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Stands one nation. Right, everyone have an agenda? All right, we're gonna skip over previous minutes. We didn't get them done. We'll get them out the next couple of weeks to everybody with the meeting minutes from tonight as well. Chairman's report. Not in any particular order. CMAX REMSCO is February 6th and 7th in Troy. If you have a chance to get out there, I highly encourage you to head on out there. Grants Gateway issues. We continue to work with Colleen Kiefer at Lake Plains to resolve our issues. Also spoke with Kevin Mahoney in early December and continue to have email exchanges with him on where we need to progress going forward. Where do we stand today? So we still don't have the money that we need or that is owed to us. The executive team will sit down in the next week or so. We have a plan on how we need to proceed. Just need to get together and make sure we're all on the same page and start divvying up tasks to help execute that plan. What's making this somewhat difficult is that up until December 31st of 2023, New York State used the Grants Gateway to pay vendors. Beginning in January, they're switching over to the statewide financial system, SFS. Yeah. So those that have used that, it's a little bit easier and cleaner to use. However, we need to make sure we have all the proper documents. And when I took the first chair back in 2020 or 2021, it was virtual, so we didn't have a proper handoff of documents. So Sean is going back into the Grants Gateway, pulling the things out that we need. And then we're gonna have to put a plan together whether we're gonna execute past years in Grants Gateway or we can transition everything over to the SFS system. I'm hoping we can transition everything over to the SFS system to make our jobs easier, but I don't know yet. We also have a couple contacts at the state that we can talk to that will help us through the process. But so it's a little bit more information than what we had in the November meeting. Still haven't gotten all our money yet, which we're owed probably over 50,000 now from the last 3 years, and then a partial payment from 2021. So over 50,000, somewhere in the neighborhood of probably 60 to 70,000. So that money is there, it's owed to us. We will work to get that, and then we'll have to execute a contract for this year for another 25,000. Any questions on that? Perfect. EMS legislation. Did anybody have a chance to look over the executive budget, proposed executive budget that was released? It's pages pretty much 264 to 281 of the mental health and hygiene budget, which is towards the end. I think it's B. It starts at one there. There's some good things in there, like community fire medicine. how to fund that, how to work through that. But it's still kind of a bastardized version of community paramedicine that will allow agencies to do vaccinations and a couple other things. There are some things in there that quite frankly just kind of make you laugh. Good thoughts behind it, but they're looking to put all the PSAPs in New York State under the Department of EMS. And have them credential underneath them, and then the Bureau of EMS will create the credentials and create a uniform standard of how they need to proceed. And similar to what EMTs, paramedics have now as far as the certification, dispatchers will have to have that same certification. I highly doubt that will fly in New York State, considering this has far-reaching parameters outside of EMS, and quite frankly, I feel oversteps their reach. But Director Greenberg likes to shoot high sometimes, so we'll see how that pans out. A lot of those things that were tied into the PSAPs, all kind of roll in together towards EMS. So if that comes out, my guess is that a large portion of what was underneath there will come out as well. I don't know, Rob or Mike, if you know the genesis of where that came from, or how that kind of spawned.
No, the only thing that I could add to that is that I watched the commissioner give his report to the legislatures as well, and he also is committed to, first of all, making EMS essential. Secondly, they want to bridge down to 5 districts now, as opposed to the 9 they were talking about last year. And then he's looking at wanting to create a paramedic telehealth program.
Yeah, like a paramedic urgent care center as well, isn't he?
I didn't see that, but I know he wants to create like the telehealth using medical.
There was also something in the governor's state of the state that he made a point of emphasis to talk about that was missing in the executive budget. So I don't know if that was already taken out before they even got to that or not, or something had changed. Lisa, do you care to comment at all on the budget?
No.
So I encourage you to, the link that I sent in the email is a live link to the budget for the proposed 2025 budget. So that anytime, any revision, that link should stay alive and take you to that budget. So it's something they kind of keep an eye on, because it does have large scale ramifications for EMS. Any questions? As Rob already alluded to, they did talk about creating a definition of EMS in there. But it also wasn't the definition of EMS that was created at the central level. So I don't know how well that will fly. I will find out when I arrive in Troy on February 5th. Direct pay bill, everyone that was signed back in November, Rick sent us a nice link with that announcement that I forwarded out. So that is kind of good news. As direct pay bill now forces insurance companies to pay agencies directly. However, they are using the standard of Fair Health. And anybody that has looked at ambulance billing recognizes that Fair Health is dictated by the insurance carriers, what they report. And basically they're giving us 80% of what they report. So year over year, that 80% gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So we'll see what happens with that. There's new billing legislation on the docket for this year as well. So kind of keep your eyes and ears out for that. Training and education. Everyone should have seen the training and education regulations are out for public comment. I highly encourage you to review those and submit comments, whether you like them, don't like them, are neutral. Any sort of comment is helpful. Last time we met, we had discussed that the regulation was going to be an emergency regulation. However, the time it took the Bureau to kind of get everything and follow along the lines, the question was asked, well, how is some of this stuff emergent when we're talking 5, 6, 7, 8 months later, which pushed the education and training regs into just regular regs coming out. So we have to follow that timeline. They were posted for comment on December 5th or 6th. They are open for 60 days. which will close shortly. They will go back to the commissioner. They will be reviewed. Any sort of comment that needs further clarification will then go to the bureau. The bureau will be tasked to answer those questions. If they need to further go back to REMSCO or the Training and Education Committee, that will happen. They will get answered. The comments will be then packaged back up with the questions that need to be answered, and then more than likely sent back out for public comment in March for another 60-day period where you'll be asked to comment on them. After that, they will then be closed for comment. They will come back. If anything else needs to be further clarified, they will need to be answered and sent back. If everything is good and accepted as is, they will then be packaged and sent back to the REMSCO for final approval, which will then create the regulation, and then we're just waiting on the bureau to send them back to actually start to be codified. So the process of them actually being solidified is anywhere between May and the end of this year. We're hoping that they can get voted on at least by the REMSCO in September of this year, which will then take them live in January of 2025. Any questions about that? Last time we met, we also talked about the paramedic PSE, practical skills examination, or examination going away July 1st, 2024. That is not in the current reg. That is in what was the emergency regs, that was now in the regular education and training reg. What will happen is that paramedic exam will still end. They will still have to take a PSE this year. More than likely, we'll have to take a PSE for the rest of this year. The REMSCO and the training and ed, REMSCO remanded it back to training and ed and also med standards to do a thorough review of all PSEs for all levels of care. So there is a chance that towards the end of 2024 and 2025, that PSEs will be leaving for all levels of care, going to more critical based thinking and examination skills during the class. Which, I don't know, Rob, you want to comment on that, being an educator?
So our first meeting with that tag is Monday.
Perfect. So if you have any comment or any thoughts on that, submit it to Rob. Rob will carry those comments forward. So those that thought that they were getting out of the PSE this year, that is not happening. But once the regulation gets approved, the paramedic PSE will come out. But they're also doing a review on all the other levels of care. Regional quality assurance. Mike or Rob, do you want to talk on that?
Sure, we're still in the planning phases. We've reached out to some of our hospital counterparts, and we're putting together a platform of folks that are willing to work with us on this. Considering that it is a regional quality assurance program, we're looking for anybody on the council here that would be willing to take part in it. We're looking at like quarterly studies. And once we have a complete list of who's going to be taking part on the regional QA committee, then we'll form our first meeting, kind of an organizational meeting. Now I know I kind of took the spear on this and I'm working on putting it together. I don't want to be in charge of it. It's a regional quality assurance thing, and the regional council needs to be in charge of it. So we'll guide you every step of the way. But you know, we need to work, you know, together collaboratively on it. So if anybody's interested in joining that committee, please reach out to me. You know, we're hoping it doesn't take a lot of time. The beauty of this is we have a lot of things on our side, such as data that could be pulled from our hospitals. We have, you know, the state system we can pull data from. So, you know, there's a lot of different avenues that'll make our life a little easier rather than just sitting down and going through all these paper PCRs. So, so that's where we're at on that. We want to use this as not only an assurance component, an improvement component. And that's what this is really about, is improving our system, you know, across the region and improving the services that we can provide. So hopefully that'll help us bring out some training initiatives and you know, like I said, it'll just improve the system. So that's where we're at right now. Like I said, if you're interested in taking part, reach out to myself. You can send me an email or talk to me tonight. So far, I know, Rob, you're taking part on it, right? I've got Children's Hospital, Ben Casper, he's gonna be taking ECMC's on board. You know, so we're slowly getting there. That's about that with that.
And Mike said this is one of the REMSCO deliverables that we have to have and should have had for the last few years. And we need to kind of start moving forward and basically what it does, it's kind of piggybacks on the performance standards that we'll talk about here in a little bit from the state level. We can create metrics that we would like agencies in our region to follow. That kind of leads those agencies to create seasons. Kind of touch base on that a little bit now. The only thing I'll say on that before I turn it over to him is that, Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong. One of the things that you guys are seeing when you're out inspecting is a lot of smaller agencies or agencies kind of are lacking in QA policy areas. So this is kind of more focus driven to help the agencies, one, become more compliant, but also give them an understanding of the things that they know. And, you know, you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of times we're going into it because you have a captain or EMS captain that has no idea kind of what they're supposed to do. And they're sitting across from them and they're asking them pertinent questions and they're not able to answer it. So kind of giving a guidance document and plan for those agencies to kind of follow.
Sure. And so agencies that don't have a QA plan, it really needs to be written. It's in public health law that we got to have one. Each agency's got to have one. And it can be as simple as agencies working together as well. The Bureau of EMS actually posted recently the updated New York State Quality Improvement Manual. It is not your plan. I had an agency contact me and say, oh yeah, we're all set. We're going to use the plan, the manual that's online. This is here to kind of guide you in the process. Okay. And there's a lot of very, very good information in here. And really it's gearing towards, you know, quality metrics and using the plan for improvement, not necessarily assurance. You know, typically we say, okay, yeah, we're doing quality improvement. We're reading PCRs. Okay. That's only one step here. You know, you've got to have the quality assurance and quality improvement part of it. So, if anybody here needs help putting together a quality assurance program, we can help you do that. And it's not a big deal. Reach out to myself, reach out to Rob. You know, we'll make sure that you have a plan that's gonna suffice Lisa when she shows up at your doorstep. The other things that you should be doing too is when hospital systems like Catholic Health come out and they have these big meetings, you know, that all is geared towards regional quality assurance as well, because it's a hospital system, multiple groups coming together, it all fits that criteria. So those types of things are very important. Now, the biggest part of this is documentation. Okay. If you can't prove it, it never happened. So if Lisa or Don or somebody walks in and you can't prove that you have a program, or you can't prove that you're taking part in that regional aspect of it, that there's no way that they can kind of give you credit on that on your inspection. Am I right, Lisa?
That's correct.
Okay. I don't want to talk for you. So, but once again, you know, we're here to help. Just let us know if we can help you. I know I've helped out a lot of agencies over the last year with putting these plans together. I've got tons of templates, but the thing is it's one thing to write a plan, but it's another thing to actually go through the motions. And that's what they're looking for, is you're going through the motions. You're actually carrying out that plan that you're writing. or the plan that you've approved as an agency. But I would start out with this. If you're looking to put together a new plan or even update your current plan, because that should be reviewed and updated. There's some very, very good information in here. And you can get it right off the DOH website.
Any questions for Mike? I think it's important to understand, assurance is basically agency specific or totality of the agency. It should basically reinforce whether your training is working or not. Improvement is more individual based, where you dive down into individual performance from that level. So kind of keep that in mind. To the point Mike made, a lot of times people talk about, oh, we have this, well, you're not really doing what you're supposed to do. So that guidance documents are a really good document to read. It's a little boring at some points, but pretty good information. Collaborative protocols. Unfortunately, there was no quorum for the doctors at the CMAC or standards. So the collaborative protocols that were to be voted on in December were pushed to February. What does that mean? Hopefully it does not mean there will be any delays. They just sent the poll out earlier than normal to ask to make sure everyone was going to be there, so they can ensure that there'll be enough doctors there to vote on these. So they should go in. There's really this group of changes that really isn't a heavy lift on those. So I don't think there's going to be much education that comes out. So expect the collaborative protocol changes to still go live come July. Speaking of our CMAC representative, we sent a letter to the state endorsing Dr. Seth to be the CMAC representative. Dr. Lynch is stepping down. However, Dr. Lynch is still on going through the process. Why Dr. Seth becomes vetted. Did you get anything from them yet?
On December the 9th, they asked me my ethnicity.
That was it?
That was it. So I responded.
Perfect.
I have not heard anything back.
So about a year from there.
So at some point between now and a year, you'll probably get a letter and ask for some tax information, which is, I still don't understand why you kind of do that. And then they don't ever talk to you, and then you get a phone call saying you're approved. So I will make sure every 6 months that I will kind of poke and prod to make sure that at least going through the process. Lisa, pull your ears for a minute. The vetting process is a super secret process. You don't, it's like Fight Club, you don't talk about it. You don't ask questions about it. You don't, the commissioner ultimately has the final determination of vetting you and putting you on. But until that name comes across his desk, nobody knows really what happens to your information or where it sits, or kind of what they do in the interim is what they're doing to vet you. So all we can do is ask questions to see where somebody is in the process. I think it kind of just spurns like, oh, we should probably call the super secret person to see where this is at, and then move it up the next spot, and then you have to ask again. There is a gentleman on the council, was on the council, that had the highest level of clearance you could have with the CIA. It still took him 2.5 years to get vetted in New York State. He got vetted by the CIA in like 3 months. But nobody really knows the process. When you ask about the process, you don't ever get an answer about the process, the vetting process. Nobody really knows what happens. So hopefully that will be soon. I will give you.
If I hear anything more, I'll let you know.
Perfect. Yeah, just let me know, that way I can. All right, let me know if you got something, then we can send it back, and then if I get sent back and we're good to go.
Sure.
Because I had to send the letter 3 times. They got very specific on some of the words I had to say.
Okay.
Performance standards. Last time we met, we talked, there were 11 performance standards that were created by different committees that were sent back to the chairman of the REMSCO to be disseminated out to the REMSCO members. I have not seen the list of the full 11, so I can't tell you exactly what they are. I know there is a subcommittee working on those 11 recommendations to drill them down into 4. I know that committee has been working. I've seen some of the committee meetings. So I'm hoping that in February, we understand what 4 performance standards were approved. They will come forward to the REMSCO as polished standards, and then basically we will have to wordsmith them to create regulations surrounding them. They will then go out for public comment, and then at some point they will be put into regulations. So what does that mean? Until then, it really doesn't mean anything, as agencies that really don't have to do anything until you start to see them. You can want to probably start planning around how you're going to measure them and report them. So, any questions about that? Rob, you have anything you want to add on that?
I'm not on that committee.
I'm not on the committee either. I was on the committee that had to help grade them, so I didn't want to be on the committee that made a word thing again. Talking to a couple people that were actually on those committees, from people that were on the original committees, the subcommittees tried to take some of these back and like totally repeal them and rewrite what was already written and done. So that was part of kind of the herding process. Tom, you were on one, weren't you? Didn't you say you were going to be?
I had to withdraw.
Oh.
I was gonna be on my quality measure.
I wasn't sure if you had any insight. Was anybody in here on committees? Part 800 regulation changes for equipment. Hopefully they'll go out for public comment in the first quarter of 2024. We'll look for them to be approved sometime at the end of this year. Once they are approved and put in the regulations, there are timeframes of anywhere from 6 to 12 months to become compliant in there. So we're already looking at 2026 before these kind of regulation changes happen. In the interim, at some point this year, we're gonna start reviewing the equipment changes for 2030, 2035, we'll call them, to get them processed and continue to move it forward. Bylaw committee, I talked to Dave. Dave plans to start working on that this spring. So anyone interested in working with Dave, feel free to reach out to me or Dave, Cole, and let me know. Treasurer's report, still working on changing over the executive group to them. Steve's gonna raise an eyebrow here. We haven't been able to because need certain names on the grant gateway to get paid. So we're gonna make one small little change here. It shouldn't be a problem, but so if you continue to get stuff, just pass that forward.
Haven't got it. So mostly going to the right people.
Old business. Already talked about performance standards. So this is, I figure this might be a large topic of discussion. Did everyone see the poll that went out regarding the sunsetting of CCs? Everyone in the room saw that? If you can, I know Rob and Mike sent that out. When you get your agency, feel free to send that out to everybody in your agency. It's a poll open to everybody in the state and the agency. Please read that and respond. The information that you can relay in there is highly important. At this time, I don't know what's gonna happen. There's been a large movement in the last 6 months to begin the process to sunset CCs. What is driving this? So what's driving this is a lot of things. One, the education or the curriculum for the CC program is vastly outdated. There hasn't been any new education in over 20 years for that program. There are no new CC programs. There are only current CCs that continue to research in New York State. Northwell, which created the CC to paramedic bridge program, has seen a vastly declined enrollment from the spring to the fall of almost 50%. They are currently unsure if they will hold the one class they have for this year due to lack of enrollment. The hope is that becomes available. Now, some things that you can do to encourage CCs to bridge to the paramedic program. There might be money available that will help you do this. Doesn't cost you. The program is basically asynchronous. It's done at your leisure. There are timeframes that you have to follow. But each didactic section is after leisure. So, where do we see this sunsetting? There was a motion made at the December meeting. That was tabled and sent back to Med Standards and, Training and Ed again, where they will officially sunset with it July of 2027. July 1st. Those that are CCs will have the option to either transition down to AMT, EMT, or nothing. They won't have to sit through any sort of recertification if they're gonna downgrade their level of care. Stepping back from that, the plan is to have the last bridge course run and April 26, which will take that 1 year to that end date to get everybody on there. So if you feel strongly about the program, please reach out and express your feelings in the poll. That way everybody can see your comments and your feelings, and we can kind of put a plan together. Ultimately, CCs are gonna sunset New York State. It's just a matter of when, not if. And how we kind of plan for that going forward. Do you remember how many active CCs there are off the top of your head?
No, but I'm supposed to be getting a report.
Okay.
There's not a lot. We have very few actually remaining out this way.
So if you have any concerns, let me know. I can express those concerns at the meeting. But this is a large topic of conversation. It has a lot of support at the CMAC and REMSCO level. The main concern is just the educational requirements that have lacked. So any questions about that? Sorry, Rob. Dempsey 35, Rob, or Mike?
Yeah, so I'll be a little briefer than Mike about this. If you haven't heard, starting January 1, we're into a new transition for data standards. If you're not aware, currently we're in NEMSIS 3.4. And we will be moving anywhere between now and July 1st to NEMSIS 3.5. Most of you that have third-party software are on the state bridge. You won't probably have to do much on your end. Your vendors may ask you to do some things in order to prepare for that. But if you own your own system that you customize, you're gonna probably be doing a lot of work.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah. So there are some changes coming. First of all, there's gonna be some of the elements that we currently chart with are gonna be getting some custom elements assigned to them to make charting a little easier. I know last year, Ryan Greenberg had a in-depth conversation with Peter Brody and the rest of our DI team about the amount of fatal errors that are out there and dialing them back. So we've transitioned a lot of those out. And be honest, there are very few fatal errors or errors that will cause the chart to fail. Mostly attributed to like the national elements as opposed to state elements. There are still some state elements that will be required, but a lot of them will move
Any questions for us?
But she knows, yeah.
Regional Spotlight Campaign, Mike talked about that at our last meeting. We had our first, person go out in December. We have a couple more that's gonna go out, tomorrow. I'll thank you, Aaron. for that part of it with your fire department. Tom, can you send me the people that you guys put on your Facebook page so we can do a recent spotlight a little bit as well? Yeah, we'll get that out and I'll get that sent back to you for that. All right, so just remember, guys, we want to try to encourage and promote positive feedback to our providers, making sure that we're acknowledging the things that they do. It doesn't have to just be from high acuity call. It can be from, you know, working extra hours. It can be from putting in extra effort. You know, it could be taking a class and bringing that information back to the agency, that sort of thing as well. So a lot of people are doing it. We want to kind of keep that positive momentum going. You know, not everyone's gonna get a Catholic Health Award or a Big Lakes Award or a state award, but at least that we recognize them for the job that they're doing, and that's what we want to do with that. A couple things that there are a couple other work groups that are starting up. One of them is a reduction in red lights and sirens for both responses and transports. That work group is not yet off the ground, but it should be up by the end of the first quarter. The second one is, this is a bad name for it. It will be renamed, but basically hazardous events and responses. This was kind of spurred from the blizzards from last year, where a lot of things kind of went awry, mostly in Erie County, of things that weren't good. And in a lot of the after action reports, especially for the Buffalo Blizzard for Erie County, 40-page document had one sentence related to EMS operations. We all know EMS operations stopped for over 72 hours in the city of Buffalo and the vast majority of Erie County. One sentence was attributed to EMS. So the goal behind that is a couple things. One, to continue to make EMS, bring EMS to the forefront, that we need to have a seat at the table when these things happen. Two, to create a guidance document that agencies can begin to follow in these events, whether it be a windstorm, a snowstorm, a rainstorm, a hurricane, an earthquake, something along those lines where we are gonna have to pull back and say, we're not going out for certain calls. Weather is too bad for us to even go out at this time. How do we create strike teams and task force to make sure we can respond to echo and delta level calls if at all possible? How do we put that together? Also, to bring it back, to make sure that county EMS coordinators, county emergency managers understand what EMS does and their role, and bringing that forward as well. So we'll kind of see how this goes. This is probably going to be a 2 to 3 year work group before something is kind of changed, but ultimately attempting to bring something towards a guidance document, but also a regulatory plan. So that we're not all kind of doing our own thing. Because in Erie County, it was kind of like the Wild Wild West. There were EOCs that were spun up, but, you know, one county wasn't talking to a town, another town wasn't talking to another county, and vice versa. So making sure that we can kind of all be on the same page and not have redundant things spin up, but also knowing what resources to have or what's appropriate. Not understanding what resources are available at your disposal as well. So those are two work groups. If you're interested in those, please let me know.
Andy?
Yeah.
You should probably put the hospitals on that one too, because even with this last week, storms that we've had, pretty much Buffalo Mercy got snowed in, if you want to call it that, and then we had 80 patients waiting to be discharged and couldn't get them out. So EMS response and crews were waiting, and we were trying, you know, we can't really say, you know, Mercy closes or any hospital, but there are better alternatives and things we might want to look at if we put in that kind of place. So
Absolutely.
we're going to do that.
Oh, I appreciate that. Program agency report.
Okay, just a couple things on our end. Just a reminder on the agency credentialing portal. Please update your agency information, your leadership on there. You know, a lot of the volunteer companies do the elections here in the fall, and the portal is one of the last things that they think of. But we need to have that updated list. Also too, just a reminder to update the Bureau on those changes as well, so they know who they need to get a hold of. We have had a couple agencies switching over electronic PCR platforms. So when that happens, you need to fill out a new DOH 5136, and it's got to be updated. We just can't switch a platform and not tell the Bureau the information's not going to get there. So we put out correspondence on the new MOLST form and the MOLST policy on December 20th. Please take a moment and read through that. The policy statements 23-12. It's pretty in-depth. There's a lot of good information on that. So please take a moment. We're gonna have an EMS introduction to EMS officer course. We've had one in Niagara County, we've had one in Genesee County. We've scheduled one for Orleans County, March 11th at Ridgeway. And once again, this course is kind of an introductory course on, you know, what this council does, what that agency does, the do's and the don'ts. So we'll also pass out an officer handbook, which can also be found on our website. But anybody interested in that, you most certainly can register at ubmdems@buffalo.edu. The other thing is Niagara County EMS signed up for the BLS iGel program. I know their training stuff is in, you're just waiting on the go live approval, right?
We just got approved yesterday afternoon, so, we should be good to go.
Okay. So, the only other thing I have is a reminder to all the agencies, when you're at the ER with your ambulances, shut your ambulances off, please. We have numerous complaints from different hospital systems on ambulances left running near ER doors. Those fumes are getting sucked into the ER, and that's not good. We shouldn't be running any vehicles near emergency entrances at all. So please shut them down. So that way I don't get phone calls. Rob doesn't get phone calls. And we don't have to blast that over the email.
The problem becomes when we're held at the ER for an hour plus, we need to keep our medications warm.
I get that.
We get that.
Move it out.
Pull it away from the.
Pull it away from the ER.
I mean, some ERs, like, there's not a lot of options for that, you know what I mean? So like,
Yeah,
and I think that's why it's happening. I mean, you know, sometimes you got a quick turnaround. time,
but to leave an ambulance running right next to the doors.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
and that's
totally
understandable.
inappropriate.
That's understandable, but I
Well,
think,
it's happening. So that's why I'm bringing it up.
okay.
We had a
So-
problem big time this last week with the storm at Mercy. They're letting them run underneath the ramp at Mercy. There's plenty of room to pull forward at Mercy to do that. We're aware that
Sometimes, but sometimes we're locked in.
Lockport we're working on, there's more room to pull forward if you have to. It's not so bad at Lockport as much as it is, and St. Mary's
Yeah.
is a little bit further. It's basically just right near the door, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you just move a little bit away from the door.
That makes sense.
You know, I mean, that makes sense, you know, as best you can, and if you can't do that, and there's a problem where cars in the way, whatever, let us know at our hospitals anyway, and we'll see what we can do to move that, because I understand that completely, and I brought that up at our meetings. But we just gotta be cognizant of the doors, because it is pretty bad at times.
Oh, it's been a long meeting already, so.
Sarah, any training in it?
Starting to reach out to correspondents, find out what courses we're gonna have around the region for the upcoming year. Anybody that's a CLI, CIC, I am working very diligently with NTRIP to offer at the very least one instructor update this year. I'm pushing for 2 or more, but I've been promised at least one. And maybe for spring and fall. But I've been promised at least one, but I guess I'm gonna be pushing for a little bit more.
Perfect. Rick, anything from the audience?
No, those were.
Fair, back to you for the awards center.
So the date for the award center is April 24th, 2024. Met briefly with, some committee members for tonight's meeting. We're gonna be working on, location. But the application, process is open, for any of the awards. Mike's gonna handle collecting them all for the committee until we can review them. So all of the awards they give off at Vital Signs are open for regional awards. The deadline for those is March 31st. Please don't wait till March 31st.
Got it, March 30th.
How the 28th?
Okay.
Okay. So anybody that you feel, needs to be recognized for anything. The new one in there is the Harriet,
See,
Leadership.
the Leadership Award. We didn't include that last year because I didn't understand what it really was. But that is in there this year too. And all of the descriptions for those awards are in the link for the DOH stuff. So if you're not sure what categories you might be looking at, just go ahead and read through those descriptions because we go by the same thing that the Department of Health does.
And just to reiterate, we did have somebody that actually won a state award from our council, so we'd like to nominate everybody again and actually from already in whatever state award. Lisa.
Just a reminder to everybody to please use the EMS forms page portal. We no longer accept anything by mail. The admin systems don't even tell me when I get mail most of the time. So if it involves paperwork, it must go through the portal. If you have any questions or any problems, you can absolutely reach out to me or my poor Rob. We are currently working on syncing full service inspections and annual renewals. So if your annual renewal is up this year and you saw me last year, you will see me again this year, and then you will be on a 2-year schedule. So your full service and your renewal will be on the same schedule going forward. I think Mike mentioned the MOLS training. I believe there's also some training about that up on Vital Signs Academy if anyone is interested. And the Bureau just posted 2 new district chief positions, one for the North Country and one for Eastern New York, if anyone is interested in relocating.
Does anyone have anything for Lisa? Kind of sad that Ed's not here because I would like to share a video of his race between him and Brian, but we'll save that for another
I
day.
think, okay.
Dr. Seth, anything from medical director?
You covered everything. Traditional.
Rob, Catholic Health?
Yeah, we apologize. We had to reschedule our events this past week, the training event because of the storm. We have one scheduled the 12th of February at 7 p.m. here in Niagara County. It will be the geriatrics lecture. And if you've never taken that class before, it is actually a lot of fun. Scott comes and brings the funky glasses and makes you make dinner with shall I say, Sonority glasses on. So it's actually a fun class to take. That'll be here 7 p.m. on the 12th. February is Heart Month, so all the fire departments in definitely Niagara County, some in Orleans County, we'll start to see our EMS liaisons come out and drop stuff off into your doors. We literally tape it to your doors. That will include information you can use in your training sessions for the month. Just to look at Heart Month coming up. And just to go along with our regional QA and other things we're talking about, we really have stepped up our game on our quality assurance, and we now send literally within days, every cardiac arrest that comes to Catholic Health is sent out. And I want to make it clear that we're not sending QA out, we're sending feedback out, right? We put a section in about what the narrative the paramedic or EMT put on the PCR, and then what happened in the hospital, of course. So there is no way I'm telling you, your providers are doing crappy care, or your providers, whatever, that's up to you to decide. We just want to give you the feedback for what comes in, and that'll go along with STEMI and stroke as well. And we're really trying to up our game and get it quicker. Emily wanted me to reiterate too, that we have the barcode. If you guys ever need feedback on any patient that's brought into a Catholic Health facility, just barcode it. Brent, you've used it a couple times. We try to get that back within about 48, 72 hours or so. We're back quickly, but all right, I will.
Does anybody have anything for Rob or Kathy? Does anybody have anything under new business? Okay, our next meeting will be held March 20th in Genesee County at the Fire Training Center, Genesee County. I'll send out the address. Right over motion to adjourn. Have a good evening, everybody.